This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 126. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 31st of August 2009. Nice to have you with us. We are a few days late with this episode of the Project Management Podcast because I was gone for the weekend. My wife and I, we celebrated our 15-year wedding anniversary, and so we decided to go to Catalina Island. Catalina Island is both a tourist destination and a nature reserve, just off the coast of Orange County here in California. So this makes this a couple of days late. But wait, did I say just a couple of days? No, because we are about a year late. The interview that you will hear today was recorded in late 2008. Getachew and I got together then and we recorded this interview. I got everything ready for publication and then promptly forgot about it. That is until I received an email from Getachew about 3 weeks ago, and I was wondering, did we ever publish this interview? Well, no, we hadn't, and as such, you could say that this particular sub-project here of the Project Management Podcast is about 1 year late with its delivery. In the interview, we discuss the overall state of project management in Ethiopia, the available training infrastructure, the industries using project management, how project management in Ethiopia could generally be strengthened, and, of course, what we project managers from around the world can do to help. Today's episode is sponsored by Rike. How do you assign tasks and track your team's progress? Calls, emails, and spreadsheets, right? All that makes you buried in routine work. To get the full insight into projects and save up to 25 hours every month, thousands of managers worldwide use Rike. To try Rike for free and get an exclusive limited time 25% PM podcast discount on your 1 year subscription, visit www.rike.com and apply PMP as the promo code. And now we are continuing with the interview. Getachew Tekle-Mariam is an infrastructure projects expert in the Development Projects Department of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development of the Government of Ethiopia. In this department, which is responsible for studying and controlling the project planning and management system at the federal level in the country, Getachew is responsible for monitoring, appraising and reporting on public sector infrastructure projects financed by the Ethiopian government or bilateral and multilateral donors. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Land Resources Management and Environmental Protection from Mekelle University in Ethiopia. He has also been educated in macroeconomic development, infrastructure development in developing countries, national economic development and project management. At the time when we recorded the interview, he was undertaking his master's degree at the College of Development Studies of Addis Ababa University in regional and local development. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Getachew Tekle-Mariam, infrastructure projects expert MOFED Ethiopia and international correspondent for pmforum.org. Hello Getachew and welcome to the program. Thank you very much. You are the first guest from Africa here on the Project Management Podcast.
Hello, Cornelius. I'm really happy to be invited by the PM Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very glad to have you. Now, before we look at project management in Ethiopia today, I'd like to take a step back and look at Ethiopia itself. Can you give us a brief, maybe 2-minute overview of the history of your country and maybe also a look at the economy, how it is today?
Okay, Cornelius, I will try to have an introductory part about Ethiopia. Ethiopia is an East African country. It has neighbors of Kenya, Sudan, Djibouti and Somalia as its close neighbors. It has a founded history, and it has also an immense value from the anthropological point of view. For example, the first human ancestor, the older human ancestor, Australopithecus afarensis, is found in Ethiopia, in the Afar region of Ethiopia. It is around 3.8 million years old. Another historic line about Ethiopia is Ethiopia has been mentioned by the Holy Bible 33 times, and also it has been mentioned many times in the Islamic Quran also. Ethiopia has a varying topography, ranging from a higher altitude places like Ras Dashan having 4,543 meters above sea level, and also has a lower topography which is called Dalol, which amounts about 1,000 or around that below sea level. It has also an immense history in case of Aksum. Aksum, as you know, was the second most powerful empire next to the Roman Empire around 1000 before Christ. Ethiopia is also a known exporter of coffee. As you know, coffee Arabica is the most famous type of coffee in the world. Its coffee by itself is, the name coffee comes from a place in Ethiopia called Kaffa. But by history, it's told that the name coffee comes from a place in Ethiopia called Kaffa, where the coffee Arabica is first found out.
I didn't know that.
You know that?
I did not know that.
All right. Another introduction about Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a lot of unique animals and plants. For example, the Walia ibex, the Assamese wolf, and the Gelada baboon are special and unique to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is also known for its religious harmony. The Islamic people and the Christian people are living harmoniously, experiencing their religion democratically in Ethiopia. It's a well-known harmony in the world. Ethiopia is also known for its 80 plus ethnicities living harmoniously in one country. Ethiopia has more than 80 ethnicities living in one country harmoniously, democratically, experiencing their own culture in their own land. About the economy of Ethiopia, the economy of Ethiopia is mostly based on agriculture. 85% of the population of Ethiopia, by the way, Ethiopia by this year has a population of 81 million, around 81 million. It's not an official number, but it's around 81 million. So 85% of this population lives relying on agriculture. Agriculture also contributes 40% of the gross domestic product of the country. Mm-hmm. As you know, the other economic sector in Ethiopia is a tourism sector. Have you ever confronted a motto of which says like 30 months of sunshine?
No.
It's an international motto for the tourism sector of Ethiopia. But by the way, Ethiopia has a unique calendar also. The calendar of Ethiopia starts in September 11 of the Gregorian calendar. It's the ancient calendar which the Ethiopians has adopted for themselves, while the Europeans and the Americans has changed into another type of counting the day and night thing. So Ethiopia has a unique calendar. Our year, the Ethiopian year, starts in September 11 of the Gregorian year. The Ethiopian year is composed of 13 months.
Ah, so that's where the 30 months of sunshine come from.
Yeah, that's where the 13 months of sunshine comes from. The 12 months of Ethiopian year has an equal number of days, 13 days. 13 days. But a 13th month has 5 or 6 years, 5 or 6 days. A 6th day will come when the European has got a leap year. In the Gregorian leap year, the Ethiopian year will have a 6th day.
A 6th day in that, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that overview. of Ethiopia. I also think I understand that project management has a place in the history of the country, right? There's a long history of project management. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, the history of Ethiopia has got, even though formal literature cannot be searched out the different historical literatures written by different scholars, even though they don't have put down project management as part of the Ethiopian history. I think project management was having a greater position in the Ethiopian history. For example, there is a big obelisk called Aksum obelisk in Ethiopia. Also, there are places called the Lalibela churches, the Lalibela Church, the Yeha Church, and all these great monumental stuffs are built by the kings acting as a project manager, they themselves acting as a project manager. It means the practice of project management has been experienced in Ethiopia unknowingly or unconsciously since prehistoric times. So I think with the existence of this Aksum, Lalibela, and other monuments, I think project management was having a greater place in Ethiopian history. That's why I want to tell you about this part in the Ethiopian history.
Right, understand. Now let's move into the present and let's come directly to the really big question then. What is the overall state of project management in Ethiopia today?
Okay. When it comes to the state of project management in the country in these days, by generally looking at it, we can conclude that it's at its early age of development. When you call the state of project management, I think we are talking about the education of project management. It means in the primary, secondary, technical, and vocational training in the higher education sector. It also includes the application of project management in the different areas of the economy. It could also comprise the interest of the different professionals towards the project management. It will also include the policy and strategic level attention that's given to the project management. And also it could include the job market of the country or the economy towards the project managers. When you look at this, the state of project management in Ethiopia, it is early stage because the education, the application of project management, the interest of the professionals towards project management, the policy and strategic level attention to project management are not that much developed as they should have been compared to the state of the economy. So I think we can conclude that the state of project management in the country is at its early stage.
Right. Do you know how this compares to the countries in your neighborhood?
Yeah. Actually, there are a couple of African countries which do have a higher reputation in developing an integrated project management practice in their country. There are actually three important countries when we talk about the project management in Africa. There are South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. Let us compare the Ethiopian case with these three important African countries which do have a good reputation in respect to project management. The South African experience is actually can be compared to a developed country experience. They have got a well-developed education system. They have got their own PMI chapter even in their country. PMI South Africa, PMSA, which is part of the IPMA. So the South African experience is better to compare the South African experience with the developed countries' experience. When you go to the Nigeria case, Nigeria has also a potential PMI chapter in Abuja. In case of the Kenyan case, the Kenyans has a project management association, though it's not incorporated in the international PM platforms. It has a responsibility of coordinating project managers as a central unit in the country. So when you compare the Ethiopian experience with the South African, the Nigerian, and the Kenyan experience, the Ethiopian experience is a beginning one.
Right. You mentioned PMI chapters in South Africa.
Yeah.
I assume there are not any professional associations for project managers in Ethiopia, right?
There is no one. There is no association related to project management in Ethiopia, though it is the second most populous country in Africa next to Nigeria, I think, or the third, but it does not have any project management association.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that one of the basic foundations that you need in order to promote project management in a country is, of course, training and making sure that there is a training infrastructure in place. And I understand that your country is opening a large number of universities. Is this going to answer that need? Is project management going to be part of the curriculum?
That's a good question. My department, that means a government department that I'm working in, is called the Development Projects Department of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, has tried to undertake a preliminary assessment about the project management training capacities of the different public universities in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. So we have tried to assess their capacity, staffing, the infrastructure, the lecturers, and even the awareness toward the project management in the public university. Actually, we were 8 by that time. By now, there are around 21 public universities in Ethiopia. I think another new ones will be built up in the new Ethiopian year. But as you have mentioned, the basic thing in spreading the practice of standardized project management will be training infrastructure. As we have learned from the preliminary assessment that we have done in the 8 universities of the Ethiopia, we have found out that there is no formal and sufficient training in project management in all of the 8 universities. Actually, there are fundamental introductory courses being given to the Faculty of Business and Economics of most of the 8 universities, but they are not sufficient enough to make the graduate to think in a project-oriented way.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Is there a lack of interest from the student, or is there a lack of capacity and experience from the people who are teaching?
Actually, the results that we have found out has explained 3 important reasons for the lesser practice of project management courses in the universities. Mm-hmm. These are the first one is a lack of infrastructure. But at this time, the universities in Ethiopia are expanding their infrastructure in a higher forward way. So maybe the infrastructure reason will be resolved after some years. The second important reason that they have figured out as a reason for not practicing PM or including PM courses in their curriculum has been lack of experienced lecturers in the universities. It means, as I have told you, there is no formal training. That means either diploma, a graduate course, a postgraduate course, a doctoral course, or a postdoctoral course in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. In the field of project management or taking project management as a specialization to other fields. There is no formal training in this area. So you cannot get an experienced PM lecturer from the market. The other reason is this lack of experienced project lecturers. The other third one, the third reason that they have mentioned is that they don't have a budget enough to include project management courses in their curriculum. So these three reasons: infrastructure, lack of doctors or professors experienced in the project area, and lack of sufficient budget are the main reasons that the universities have mentioned as a focal points for failing to incorporate PM in their curriculum.
Right. Did you only look at universities, or did you also look in the private sector? Are there any training organizations, private training organizations, that offer project management at all?
Certainly, I've tried to look into the different websites and the different magazines which are being publicized in Ethiopia. Lately, I have confronted two little private companies providing project courses. Actually, they are providing introductory project management and project planning courses, including how to use of MS project. So there is not as such reliable private sector in this area, providing training and tutoring and mentoring supports. So the private sector is, I think, is not that much coordinated in this area, is not providing anything, we can say anything in this area.
Yes, I understand. When we looked at the history of Ethiopia, we saw that there were many projects in olden times that were managed using project management. From your understanding, what is it today? What major industries are using project management in your country today?
In today's case, actually, project management is being implemented majorly in the infrastructure and telecommunication sectors. In the infrastructure sector, we are building huge dams, long roads, the different hydropower facilities, the different airport facilities. We are building a huge infrastructure project. So I think PM is being implemented in a standardized way in the infrastructure sector, one, and second, in the telecommunication sector. The telecommunication sector is also competent in Africa, even as compared to the African telecom sector. So I think the infrastructure and the telecommunication sectors are comparatively in a better stand in Europe in implementing standardized PM practices.
Yes, I don't think that is not surprising. I would have expected something like that. Do you happen to know if the project managers on these large projects that you mentioned, the dams and also for the telecom industry, are those Ethiopian nationals or are those foreigners who are brought in specifically to manage these projects? Do you have any knowledge of that?
Yeah, actually, from my information, I've tried to read and have a communication with different PMs that are operating in the different infrastructure and telecommunication sectors. I have also once been in contact with PMI officials. As I could read from their email, there are only around 5 PMPs from Ethiopia. So we can see from this, we can explain that the different PM posts that are being undertaken in the infrastructure and telecommunication sector of Ethiopia are mostly dominantly being done by foreigners. PMs which which are an Ethiopian national, are actually not a certified PMs, rather they are a kind of experienced PMs. They learned the standard, the traditional project management on their long years that they have spent on the job. Rather, they are not standardized PMs or certified PMs. So in most of the projects, in most of the infrastructure and telecommunication projects that are being implemented in Ethiopia, actually most of them are contracted out for a foreign company. So they will come up with their own managers. So in most of the infrastructure and telecommunication sector projects that are being implemented in Ethiopia, the PMs are dominantly of foreigners. But if they have been an Ethiopian nationals, they are not certified PMs. Rather, they are traditional project managers.
Now, we've seen that you think that, the construction industry, the infrastructure industry is using project management in a large scale, obviously. From your point of view, where do you feel that Ethiopia would benefit from a more formal approach to project management? Which industries could really use a more formal approach to project management?
That's a big question, actually. From my point of view, I think Ethiopia would largely benefit from a formal approach to project management. First of all, there is a national level development strategy that we have designed and being implemented in a national level. The prior agendas in this national development plan is reducing the poverty prevalence in Ethiopia and enhancing a sustainable development of the economy in the country. So if we are thinking of reducing poverty in the country, we have to implement a successful projects in the different sectors and in the different regions, considering the differential variabilities in the different states of the country. Sustainable development is also unattainable if the projects that are being contracted out from this national development plan are being successfully implemented and impacting the social, economic, and environmental life of the people of Ethiopia. So I think Ethiopia will have a great benefit if project management has been formally incorporated in the National Development Plan as a focal point, and also the different projects that are being followed from or that are being extracted and being implemented in the different states from the National Development Plan has to be successfully implemented against the time, cost, and their scope. So I think implementing a standardized project management will have a benefit in regard to achieving our target of reducing poverty and achieving sustainable development. So it will have a great benefit to Ethiopia. It's a definite thing.
And here's my last question for you then. What can we project managers from around the world do to help improve the project management professionalism in Ethiopia? Is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, actually, there are things that the international PM professionals that are living in the world can do in order to enhance the status of project management in Ethiopia. First and foremost is to help us in creating a partnership and transfer a knowledge base to the Ethiopian PMs to follow a standardized project management experience. This can be done by creating different partnership schemes with PMs that are being PMs traditionally in Ethiopia, that means through experience. There are actually some PMs which are trying to create a standardized PM environment in Ethiopia. So in that case, I think the international PM societies and international project management societies can do a lot in creating a partnership scheme with the practitioners in Ethiopia to have a transfer of knowledge. A second thing that PMs in the world can do to enhance the status of PM in Ethiopia is by creating a continuous discussion forum with the Ethiopian PMs, I think. Because this will be a great thing in creating awareness in the minds of the PMs in Ethiopia that are not experiencing a standardized PM, rather they are following a traditional way of managing their projects. So with that discussion forum, I think that there will be a transfer of knowledge and technology to the Ethiopian PMs so that they could incorporate the standardized PM methodologies in their day-to-day activities. Another thing is that I think the different companies that are being contracting in Ethiopia shall transfer the knowledge and actually their structure to Ethiopian companies also. I think there shall be a kind of knowledge transfer from company to companies. It means inter-company knowledge transfer mechanism shall be put in place while the different companies are being contracting out in infrastructure and telecommunication or other sectors in Ethiopia. So I think the basic thing in answering the question of PM demand in Ethiopia is transferring the awareness, the technology, and the knowledge to traditional PMs, which are being already in place in managing the different projects. So I think that is the big answer. Another second big answer is that PMs in the world shall help Ethiopia in building her own chapter in Addis. I think I have tried to contact PMI in this case, but I have taken it into consideration. But I think there are certain prerequisites in order to open a chapter in Ethiopia. So I think the different PM associations which are functionally operating in the different parts of the world shall take into consideration the developing countries, especially the LDCs, the least developed countries in their umbrella. They shall establish a kind of framework in order to mainstream PM, standardized PM in the LDCs. If that could happen, then Ethiopia will be benefiting from that effort. So I think these two things has to be in place by PM professionals which are operating in the world for Ethiopia to experience PM in a standardized way.
All right. It looks like there is a lot that we can do from abroad to help you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gertrude. I appreciate your time today here on the podcast, and thank you very much for telling us about project management in Ethiopia.
I'm also glad to be invited by PM Podcast, and thank you, Cornelius, very much.
And that was our discussion on the state of project management in Ethiopia with Gerachu Dekle-Mariam. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And of course, if you like our podcast, then please forward it to your friends, your co-workers, your project management colleagues, and anyone else who might enjoy it. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. And if you are already a PMP, then stop by at pmlectures.com, where we go beyond just delivering PDUs. We give you exclusive training from the brightest minds in project management today. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. If debugging is the process of removing bugs from software, then programming must be the process of putting them in. Until next time.